Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Shavar and let's get right into it. So let me take this off. So today I want to talk about something that, again, that is very much online. It's the red pill, but I also want to talk about Christianity and in terms of masculinity and how Christianity and the red pill give ideas about masculinity, and I want to talk about who's right or are they both wrong. Now, I think that I call this I'm gonna call this video "How Christians and the Red Pill Make Masculinity Sound Gay," because I think they're both wrong, and I think that their ideas of masculinity is actually quite feminine. And so, to start off with, I want to talk about the red pill and the idea of the red pill. And again, I keep mentioning red pill in my videos because I want this channel to be a channel that is encouraging the men and lifts men up and empowers men. Because I think men are the answer to to everything, really. And I think, coming from a biblical perspective, as someone who believes in God, if we're going to change the world, it starts with men. Now, when it comes to the red pill, let's look at the red pill's idea about masculinity and what the red pill thinks masculinity is. Red pill guys, say masculinity is about looks, it's about status, social status, materialism, it's about making a lot of money, and it's about having muscles and being in good shape. Now, even though I don't think those things in and of themselves, that there's anything wrong with it, I think Christians overly demonize those pursuits sometimes, especially when it comes to status. I think that these things can be good, but I don't know how much a man should focus on it. I actually think focusing on your looks and focusing on materialism, I won't say status, but I'll say materialism, is actually quite feminine. I think that it's more appropriate for a woman to concern herself with those things than it is for a man. Without realizing it, red pill ideology is actually quite feminine, and that it encourages men to focus on those things. When we look at looks, for instance, like looks maxing, and you look at, men like Cavicular, out there. Looks maxing is just the idea that it's just the pursuit of maximizing your looks through certain means like pills, or even exercising, or however way you want to do it. He practices a thing called what's it called? Bone smashing or whatever. The idea is to, you bang your face, you hit your face with a hammer, and then that damage kind of repairs itself and it comes back more sharply sculpted, and I guess I don't think there's proof that it works, at least as well as he making it sound like it does, but I digress. The point is that that's actually quite feminine. The things that these guys pursue in terms of making themselves look pretty, I would say, making themselves look pretty and attractive, is very feminine, and it's not really something that men should focus on. I think that the red pill, in terms of that, and looks maxing I guess you could say it's kind of a subset of the red pill or whatever subculture within the red pill. But, the pursuit of status, materialism, what I mean by status is materialism. And, um, looks in terms of making yourself look attractive and pretty and things like that is actually very feminine. It's Women don't care about men looking attractive as much as they care about men who look more intimidating. I think it's more important for a man to look intimidating than it is for him to look attractive or pretty, if you will. Um, he should look intimidating, and you don't have to be attractive physically to look intimidating. Now, that might come with muscle and things like that. That I think men should work on their bodies and things like that. But in terms of trying to look pretty or whatever, or attractive and things like that, that's very feminine. It's intimidation that I think women gravitate more towards. It's important for a man to look intimidating and even sound intimidating and just be intimidating in general. That's what actually attracts them, and that's actually what's masculine. And so, this red pill idea that looks and status matter most, I think they could be good, but, I think women, are the ones that should be focusing more on stuff like that and not so much men. Um, it's not really something that we see in the Bible. When we look at men in the Bible, we don't see them trying to pretty themselves up and all this other stuff and pursuing materialism and everything like that. In fact, in Scripture, women were, the famous Proverbs 31 women were the business owners, the entrepreneurs. She was out there selling things and creating clothing and things and selling it and stuff like that, buying land and selling it. She was more of the entrepreneur, and the men in Israel. And this is something that a lot of people miss, is that when you look in the Old Testament and you look at Israel, the men in Israel, the nation of Israel, they weren't businessmen. They weren't entrepreneurs and stuff like that. They weren't pursuing like money and stuff like that. They were warriors, judges, prophets, priests. They were those things. They weren't like businessmen and business savvy and all this other stuff. They weren't pursuing those things. They were more about, judging, being priests, being prophets, or being a soldier or a warrior in the army of Israel. That's what you see in the Old Testament. And when you go to the New Testament, you pretty much see the same thing. You don't really see men pursuing entrepreneurship and all this other stuff. Again, you see men who are focusing on ministry and or they're prophets or they're judges in the church or they're spiritual warriors, if you will, like the apostles. They were out battling demons. Scripture talks about putting on the whole armor of God and things like that. The pursuit of materialism, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm one that thinks you should leave that stuff to your wife. Leave the prettying up and the pursuit of materialism to your wife. And I think that it's okay for a man to kind of give your woman, I guess, the capacity to do that, or whatever. Um, you know, like give her the knowledge to know how to do that and to start a business or whatever. But it's not something that the man himself should probably be pursuing. Um, it is actually quite feminine to be that way, and that's not what masculinity is. Masculinity, the man, is not supposed to be focused on his looks in terms of looking more pretty and um, pursuing status necessarily. Pursuing materialism, I would say. That's more of a feminine thing. And so the red pill gets that wrong when it talks about masculinity. Materialism and looks and stuff is not in and of itself evil, but it's not something the man should necessarily focus on or make a priority. And that's the problem with our society today and men in it. So, with that being said, let's go on to Christianity and Christianity's idea of masculinity. And this is the most frustrating thing to me when it comes to Christianity is, Christians, when you go on the internet, you look up biblical masculinity and all these Christians talking about what it means to be biblically masculine and everything else. They always define it in the context of a relationship, in like a marriage and having a woman and getting married, and it's like they make it seem as if you can't be a man, you can't be masculine unless you have a wife and kids. Like masculinity is fatherhood is and being a husband is essential to masculinity. If that's the case, then Paul wasn't masculine. If that's the case, then Jesus wasn't masculine because they didn't have wives and children. They didn't have families. So how were they masculine? If you need a family to be masculine. And this is where I would push back against Christianity, where they go to the opposite extreme. They say, no, sleeping materialism and sleeping around, all that stuff, and all that is evil and demonic. No, what it means to be a man is to actually have a family and be a father and be a husband, and serve your wife, be a beta simp for your wife, serve her, that's what it means to be a man, basically. A lot of Christians would say that's not what they're teaching, but if you think a man should serve his wife, that's pretty beta, okay? So, and you think that a man doesn't have a purpose unless he has a family, that's beta. That's pretty, and I'm using beta. I don't really like the terms. I'm just using it because it's popular online. Okay, I don't like the terms really. I just use them for the sake of discussion. They're useful for discussion. I'll say feminine. It's pretty feminine for a man to feel like his purpose is to serve his wife or his family, or it's pretty feminine for a man to think that that's his purpose in life, that without that he has no purpose. This is why so many men feel lost in our society today, because they think without a family they have no purpose, because we keep telling them that. And it's like, that is the wrong message to send to men. It's not just the red pill idea of masculinity is the wrong message to send to men, and it's harmful. The Christian idea of masculinity is harmful too, because if a man doesn't have a family, well, then he's going to feel like he's purposeless, because Christians keep telling him that his value is bound up in being a father and a husband. That is a complete lie. That is not what makes you a man, and that's just as harmful. To be quite honest with you, it's just as harmful to tell people that what it means to be a man is to be a father and a husband. I'm not saying we shouldn't pursue that and ignore that. I'm just saying that is not your primary purpose in life as a man. That's the woman's purpose. I don't think a woman could actually be feminine or be a woman unless she has a family. I think it's very important for women to have families. But that's what defines her, but that's not what defines the man. Okay? Men don't need families to have a purpose. Okay, this is harmful thinking. This is a really bad way to think about life as a man. Okay, I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue a family. I'm just saying you don't need one to have a purpose. You only need God. Okay, that's what you need as a man. You need God. You don't even need friends and other brothers. Okay, those are things you desire. Those are things you want, and that are good for you. But they're desires. They're not needs. Don't see them as needs. When you start seeing them as needs, you're going to feel like you're a failure in life if you don't have them. And that's not a good way to live life as a man. That's just not. Your purpose, what you need most is God. Okay, and I want to make a video about pursuing God and what it looks like for a man to pursue God and put him first. But that is your purpose. Okay? Stop thinking that without a family, without social status, unless you're good looking and you look like Cavicular, you're just this failed man. None of those things are what masculinity is. That's not what it means to be a man. That's not what masculinity is. It's not. It's not how the Bible defines it. The Bible doesn't define masculinity as getting married and having a family. Paul encouraged, he wished and desired that the Corinthians were like him, single. Okay, like, there's nothing to do with being a man or being masculine. That's not true masculinity. And so both Christianity and the Red Pill give harmful views about masculinity, and harmful in the sense that they're telling us to make these things a priority and that these things are what make you a man. Not that these things are inherently bad or wrong. Obviously they're not. But they're not what make you a man. And when society tells you that they are, if you don't have them, you're going to feel less of a man. You're going to feel like a failure. You're going to feel hopeless. You're not a failure because society tells you you're a failure. Okay, that's not what makes you a failure. These things are not what make you a man. They don't. So Christianity and the Red Pill are both wrong about what true manhood and true masculinity is. And so what is true masculinity exactly? What does it mean to be a man? Well, like I said, it means to make God a priority in your life and to recognize He is the only one that you need, ultimately. That through Him, everything you need will be provided for you. And that it takes time to grow in to become a man when you pursue God. The state that I'm in right now, where I'm growing here and I'm learning how to become a man and I'm maturing. That takes time, but it's all defined by pursuing God. And having Him cultivate masculinity in you and change you and nourish you and mature you into a man. And it's acquiring His wisdom and knowledge, because it's His wisdom and knowledge that makes you a man. That's what you need, is His wisdom and His knowledge to be a man. With His wisdom and knowledge, you have everything you need. And that's when you become a man. Masculinity is defined by self-sufficiency. It's independence. It's being independent. It's not needing anything or anyone. It's only recognizing that you need God, and it's not needing any man, any woman, any child, and it's not needing this system that we're living in. to survive or to prosper, but it's just needing God. That's all you need to survive and prosper and be happy. And you become a man once you break free from all that. And you realize you don't need those things. You don't need the system. You don't need family. You don't need... When you break free from all that and believing you need those things to be a man, that's when you enter your journey and the path into becoming one. When you realize society has lied to you about masculinity, both Christianity and the red pill lies to you, and that it's realizing you don't need any of those things to be a man. And it's breaking free of it. It's pursuing God, and it's trusting in Him, and it's waiting upon Him to mature you so that the wisdom and knowledge of God will be nourished and cultivated within you so that you become a man that's mature, that's independent, that needs nothing, and that's self-sufficient. That's what a man is. All you need is God in yourself, and you're dependent upon God in yourself. Self-sufficiency. You need nothing. To survive, to prosper, to be masculine, you need nothing but God and His wisdom and knowledge. That's what it means to be a man. And that's why it's important, in order to be a man, you have to pursue Him. Only through God can men become men and become masculine. There is no masculinity apart from God. There's no true masculinity. It's all just counterfeit, fake masculinity that can do nothing for the world. All it is just masculinity. It's just social, it's just societal expectations. It's not objectively what a man is. So stop thinking that you have to meet these social expectations of the red pill and Christianity in terms of how they define masculinity in order to be a man. You need to pursue God. And like I said, I'm going to make a video talking about that, but just change your mindset with regard to that. It might make a world of difference for you.